Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. There'll be others coming in, I think, as we go, but we're going to be mindful of everyone's time, especially those of you that were on time, and I appreciate that. This is a very quick session about, which is our first session. I want to start with that before I go any further. We are going to be exploring the 6 principles of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, but this one is the first session. So I'm excited that you all are here. And my name is Ellen Kimbrell, and I'm the Associate Director for the Oklahoma Parent Center. And my co-host today is Melissa Stevens. So she's going to be helping me and navigating the slides for me and watching the chat. And we also have some others that are helping and other staff that's here. So we're going to allow plenty of time for questions and answers as we go through this, but we are going to just briefly talk about what free and appropriate public education means. So just a little bit of a housekeeping. You probably have heard this numerous times. I know I've been on, this is not my first Zoom. It may be one of my first training recorded, but I've been on numerous Zooms, so you probably all have seen these housekeeping rules, but we just ask you to keep those microphones muted. That does just help with the background noise, because we are recording these sessions for individuals who want to participate, but you know, we as parents all know sometimes we can access this stuff easier at 1 o'clock in the morning instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So just be mindful of that, and then use that chat box for any kind of question you might have during the presentation. And then we just ask you to be mindful if you're going to share personal information. Just, you know, you are on an open forum, and it is being recorded. Although I'm not sure it'll be recorded during the Q&A. That might be a question we need to ask Letitia. So but anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Melissa, do you want to say anything as far as you want to?
Yep, my name is Melissa Stevens, and I am the co-host for Ellen, and I'll be presenting the same series FAPE, this Thursday at 10 o'clock. So if you have any friends or family or anyone else that you would like to share this with, please do so. And if you want to join again, you can join again Thursday at 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so what is FAPE? I was telling the girls as we were entering in that as I was preparing for this, I was like making notes and printing things off, and I was like, what am I doing? I've been talking about free and appropriate public education for 20 years. I know what it is. I know what it means. And, you know, I've been working from home for a number of those years. My husband probably could tell you what free and appropriate public education is. But anyway, you know, it does mean at no cost to the parent, other than, you know, if you have a child that wants to participate in an extracurricular like cheerleading or something, they wouldn't be required to pay for that. But education-wise, they are required it to be no cost to the parent. And that includes your vacation time, you know, things like that. You shouldn't be missing work due to concerns or issues with your child during school. Appropriate, of course, to meet the unique needs of the individual child. That's why you have the IEP, the Individualized Education Plan. And then public refers, of course, to the public education system, whatever district, which we have over 500 in our state. We're lucky like that. So whichever district you live in. And then education is, it has to be the same education as every other student to meet those needs of that individual child, of your child. So as we move forward with that, we know that I'm just gonna stop and just do a side note about what I believe to be a very important thing, which is special education is full of acronyms. And I'm sure I've probably done more than one acronym and didn't explain what it was just since I've started talking. And so I think one of the most important things we can do as family members and advocates for our children is to make sure that we understand the language of special education. And if you don't, it's okay to ask and ask a question. So if I say an acronym and I don't explain it, please raise your hand, chat, ask the question in the chat or whatever. I want to make sure you're understanding what this means for you as your child moves forward, wherever you're at in the process. So we can go ahead to the next slide, Melissa. We're going to talk a little bit about what is required for FAPE and what is not required for FAPE. So I'm not sure it's pulling up correctly. So I'm just going to see, this is why you do have notes, especially if you're being recorded. So, oh, she got it. Okay, thank you so much. So what is required for FAPE, or free and appropriate public education? So it provides special education and related services in conjunction with the child's individualized education plan, or IEP. And actually, it's an education program. So it's more than just a plan. It's a program for your child, individual for your child. It's at free and no cost to you as a parent again, and it's in the child's least restrictive environment. Now, two of these acronyms that I've talked about are going to be part of the series because they are one of the principles. So IEP is a principle of IDEA, LRE, or least restrictive environment, is a principle of IDEA. And so if you're joining this series or you want to watch one of the replays, then you'll be able to catch those as we move forward. So then we're going to talk just a little bit about what is not required and what's not considered FAPE, or what is FAPE is not. Pardon me. If I could tell you everything that was going on in my life, you'd be wondering why I'm even here. But anyway, what's not required: providing superior services for your child. What we used to say is your child is entitled to a free and appropriate public education, but not a Cadillac of service. So just because your child has a disability doesn't mean they get special treatment. Does that make sense? I hope. So, and it doesn't require that you're not allowed to, per se, who your child's teacher is going to be, or their para. They don't necessarily have to adjust a specific program just for your child because it's your preference. And then, they're not going to get special treatment just because they want to participate on activities such as cheerleading or football or whatever. Of course, they're going to accommodate the need, but they don't get a special, a spot on the team. That's what's not required. And there's many other things, but that's just kind of a brief touch of it. So I think we're going to go right into, I don't even know what kind of time frame I did there, where we're at. I always like to get done early. I don't know about you guys, but questions and answers. And so I just want to open this up for everyone. If you have a question about what we just talked about moving forward, where you're at in the process, please feel free to unmute yourselves. And we want this to be very relaxed, and we want to get to know you. That's one of the reasons we started this, because we want our faces to be out there, and for families to know that, here we are. We want to answer your questions. So please feel free. And if anybody else has anything to add, I know I have many coworkers on here, so I'm sure I left something out that they feel is important, and I want them to jump in if there's something they want to add to what I just said. Don't be shy. I will call on people. I have been known to do that. I'm teasing. My goodness, it's 2:10.
I am going to pause the recording, so if anyone wants to speak or share, they will have that freedom without being concerned that they are being recorded.
I think one of the, we had a chat earlier about a mom of 2 children with autism. And so I'm a mother of a child with autism as well. Let me check. Okay, making sure there wasn't the questions in the chat. my child is on the spectrum. My child was not diagnosed until he started school. He was on Sooner Start for DDD, which is developmental delayed. And then when he entered the school district, that is when I learned about FAPE. So prior to entering school, Sooner Start, they do their own evaluation, but their evaluation is more based on what the child needs at that time between the 0 to 3. So when he entered the school district, then is when all these acronyms, which is what Ellen said earlier, FAPE and IEP and, you know, LRE, all of that was introduced to me. But as a first-time mom, you know, it was just overwhelming to recall what all of those meant and how would I apply each of those to school. And so FAPE was the first part. And I remember I had a friend who also works in the special ed field, and she told me, she goes, you just always remember to say that your child is entitled to FAPE. You always say that. I had no idea what FAPE meant. And so, you know, I mean, she explained it to me, but I had to Google it. And you know, then I actually reached out to the Parent Center soon after I started having my own issues within the school district, of understanding what is FAPE, you know, what does FAPE include, which, you know, that's what we're going over today, free, appropriate, public education. But what does that mean for my child? And so when, and it goes into, you know, deeper than that, I mean, because there is so much more, which they're going to be going over next week of evaluations, IEPs, procedural safeguards, but all of those are just part of the IDEA. So free, meaning that, you know, for me, my child is entitled to be in a public school setting as any other non-disabled child. You know, appropriate, I need to make sure that he is receiving an appropriate education that's going to help him be successful. And of course, public is just, you know, that it's a public institution. And the education part is making sure that the education fits him, so he can be as independent as he can be when he leaves school. So when we look at FAPE, I think we have to look at it in terms of our child and what does FAPE mean to our child, and not necessarily what does FAPE mean to the teacher, to myself, because this is affecting my child. And so when I look at FAPE, that's how I look at FAPE for my child.
That's a great example, Melissa, and it's very true, because what FAPE is for your child may not be, it probably will not be what FAPE is for my child. An example that I have is just real quick, and you have to remember that my son is 35, and so when he started school at 3, we're talking a long time ago, that I had to, my son is profoundly deaf and has a rare skin disorder, but his primary disability at the time that needed the most intensive support was his hearing. And so we engaged him into a deaf ed program, into a different district, which we transferred. And he was in a pre-K program for 2 years, no problem. But when he transitioned into a kindergarten program, they didn't want to put him in a deaf ed classroom. They wanted to put him in a multi-handicap classroom, which, long story short, he entered into for 1 year. And I advocated, I almost said fought, but I advocated very strongly for him to be in a classroom with children that were deaf and hard of hearing, because that's what type of services he needed at that time. So that was FAPE for him, because a child that's deaf and hard of hearing needs to be in a classroom that is totally engaged in language. And so we fought and got him in there. I said it again, we advocated and got him in there. And you know, he graduated from public school. He didn't go to the school for the deaf, and that's what we felt like was best for him. But every child is different and unique, and that's what drives IDEA. And this is what drives us as the Parent Center to inform you. Our mission is to make sure that you understand what your rights are and what your child's rights are, so you can effectively advocate for them. That's our goal. So we're here to help.